I don't know. All right, let's go ahead and finish. Move on with more characteristics of the face. It's all about that face. About that face. No trouble.
David, quick question for you.
Quick answer. Hold on, microphone. Pass that to Steven. Yes, sir.
Just two items. What does it mean when the nose itself is asymmetrical and one nostril is perhaps larger than the other? That's one. And two, what if the corners of the mouth are asymmetrical? In other words, one is perhaps going up and the other one is going down.
Okay. So when you look at the mouth, let's start with the mouth first. So you have to make a distinction now. Let me make this picture bigger. When you look at the mouth, can't make it any bigger, apologize. When you're looking at the mouth, the first thing you have to make a determination is it a wrinkle or is it the corner of the mouth? So if you notice we have lines here, these are wrinkles. Okay? When the wrinkle extends from the corner of the mouth down, you're looking at disappointment. These people have been suffering a lot of, not just one episode, but a lifetime of disappointments. And we need to emphasize that. You can have these markings in the moment, in the face of an extreme emotion, but if they're there all the time, that is a history of these things. It's chronic, right? So that when we're looking at the mouth, we have to make the determination with this line especially, is it a wrinkle or is it the mouth actually turned down? Okay? So if we have this line, we're looking at disappointment. If the corner of the mouth itself is turned down, you're looking at somebody who's a little bit more pessimistic, just like the corner of the eye. Mm-hmm. It's the same idea. Corner of the mouth is up, they tend to be a little bit more on the optimistic side, more open, more outgoing. Okay? If you see that one side is down and one side is up, is it public or private? Mm-hmm. Guess how they are when nobody's looking. Guess how they are when everybody's looking. What's the face they're showing the world? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
When we look at the mouth also, this is not something we cover with the emotional map, but we want to look at the relative size of the mouth in proportion with two things. A, if we draw a line directly down from the pupils, does it touch the corners? We take the line directly from the sides of the nose down, does it meet the corners of the mouth? If both of those lines intersect at the corner of the mouth, you have someone who has an average sized mouth. If the mouth doesn't reach that line, you have someone with a small mouth. So if it goes beyond that line, you have someone with a big mouth. People with larger mouths tend to have more generosity. That's why we're always more generous when we smile. Okay? People with smaller mouths, they don't give quite as much. They don't give quite as readily. In fact, they usually only give strategically. They give with an agenda, either because it's expected, because they want something in return, yada, yada, yada. Someone who's got a big mouth, wide mouth, they give because it's fun. They like it. Okay? You remember, we taught you that, right?
Yeah, yes.
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 There were so many things about the mouth.
Yeah.
Yes, that was one of them.
Right. They were so inundated with eye stuff that when we got to the mouth, like, right? Then they started asking about ears, and then all the eyes glazed over after that. Right. So going back to the facial map, the emotional map, okay, we're only looking at emotional markings right now. A lot of people, I gave you other stuff, but so disappointment, overnurturing. Overnurturing you see with lines above the lips. These are small horizontal or vertical lines above the lips. And these, again, are people who are giving too much of themselves to other people. If you have a line that comes across this is a horizontal line that goes across. This is somebody who's really, really giving away their jing. They're giving away their essence or their energy or their power to preserve other people. I call it giving away your future to preserve someone's present.
That's me.
All right. So when you see this line, these people really need to spend more time nurturing themselves, like hedonistically so, to the point where they feel guilty about it, and then go deeper.
I volunteer.
Yes. Okay. I have it. And you see it a lot. Now this line will start to appear naturally around the age of 50 or 60 because we're approaching that. It's called a retirement line as well. It's a sign that you're doing too fucking much. Okay? And it's usually too much for other people. Okay?
What's Seth's?
What's Seth? He forgot to trim the hedges.
We had a hard time reading, Seth.
And he enjoyed it.
Yeah. I have a
So
feeling
we-
this is on purpose.
So we've talked about fear, we've talked about bitterness, disappointment, over-nurturing. We've talked about these purpose lines. Remember, we want these. When you're doing the things that you came here to do, these are going to get stronger. So, and that's a good thing. Okay? We talked about auditory intuition. When you've got lines in front of the ears, they look like little gills sometimes. These are people who can parse language very, very deeply. They understand things. They can extract things from what people are saying that aren't obvious. They've got really good bullshit detectors, as we call it. Okay. We didn't talk about this one, but some of you had this marking. When you have a horizontal line that comes towards the nose from the outer canthus, these are pain lines. These are people who are probably experiencing some form of physical pain, sometimes emotional pain, but it's always chronic. Right.
Can you take a look at, Matt has horizontal lines that I've never seen before.
The vertical ones?
Yeah, vertical, sorry. What is that? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, no.
Okay.
It's huge genitalia.
Yeah, that's what it is. He's a dickhead. Anyway.
Is that accurate?
Now she's like excited. Is that accurate, Matt?
Is that how to tell a dickhead?
No, it's in the nose, actually. Just the tip. Anyway. But that.
We're not going anywhere. 7-second delay.
Okay. If you see little lines in the lobes of the ears, this is somebody who has blood pressure irregularities. This can also be a kind of an emotional, a tendency to overreact to stimuli. Like when somebody has a startle response, it's like way out of proportion, which can spike or decrease your blood pressure. I have them. And I've had to deal with that most of my life. But it can be, it's not necessarily high blood pressure or low blood pressure, but erratic blood pressure. Sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low. Okay? But it's usually a sign that you need to kind of pay attention to your cardiovascular health. Okay? Not that you're sick, but you need to pay attention, right? Many of the lines that we get, the nice thing about Chinese medicine is that Chinese medicine can alert us to things long before they become medically pathological. Just like a woman has better social radar than men do, Chinese medicine has a better health radar than allopathic medicine does. We can sense things long before they would register in the Western side. And so we need to use that to fix stuff when it's still fixable. Right? Or in many cases, things that have become chronic and can't be addressed through Western medicine, we can through Chinese medicine, or as a hypnotist. Yeah.
The disappointment lines am I looking for a wrinkle, or even if like somebody has like sort of a chubbier cheek, there's like this.
No.
Can you show a disappointment line?
Come here. You see how this line turns down?
Okay.
These are disappointment lines. She's also got a downturned mouth, which doesn't help.
So these ones are longer than these ones. I mean, personal, more disappointment personal than public.
In hers,
Yeah, because the other ones.
she's got it's more pronounced on her private side
Yeah.
than in her public side. So the face, she's a realtor, so she has to show a good face all the time. So you'll see that a lot of times. You'll also probably see people who do those kinds of jobs. They'll tend to have a bigger eye on that side because they have to, right? Not always, though. So I'm saying many times because I'm a sameness person. As opposed to everybody's different. You have to look at each person case by case, which is also true. If you see those lines that go up past the outer corner, now you're looking at somebody who's going to be a little crazy. They got a little bit too much fire going on in the brain. They're going to be manic. They're going to be hypersexual. They're going to be hypercreative, and then they may, if they're all manic, they're going to be they're just going to burn out. If they're manic depressive, they're going to be up. They're going to crash.
But only if they go over the eyebrow. If
Yeah.
they go under the eyebrow, it's
If it doesn't go past the eyebrow, it's usually a pretty joyful person, right? But if it goes up past that eyebrow, even if it gets to that eyebrow, I start to get a little nervous, right? Because it doesn't take a lot to flip the switch, right? An interesting line that shows up from time to time is a horizontal or diagonal line rather that kind of comes up and cuts up this way. Some of you have it. TJ's got a bunch of them. Right? These are called transformation lines. And these are lines of people who've gone through these very long, I don't want to say necessarily spiritual, but long, dark nights of the soul and emerged with some form of spiritual transformation or epiphany or enlightenment. Okay? There's another aspect of this that's often called Buddha wings. When people open up that third eye and they become enlightened, the wrinkles go kind of like up and like this. If you watch, if you see pictures of the Dalai Lama when he's teaching, when he's actively passing on spiritual messages, you'll see these lines emerge on his face. When you catch him when he's not teaching or when he's moving from like the stage to this car or something like that, they're not quite as pronounced. So these lines can enhance or decrease depending on your energy, your mood at the time, and what you're doing. Right? But largely, the things you do most often remain. The vestiges and the markings remain, and that's what we look at. I don't look at if we're going to look at transient emotions. Now we're going to look at micro expressions, the Ekman stuff, which is also useful. Okay, it's very useful for those applications. But this is something that's a little bit more lifestyle-ish as opposed to in that moment, in that context, under interrogation or lie detection or whatever. So they're very complementary in that respect. Okay, so when you see those, they've gone through some shit. And you can always leave with that. So you can tell by the lines on your head, you went through some serious stuff and got some major life lessons from it. You learned some really powerful things that changed your life in a very profound way. Okay. Lines that you're going to see a lot, especially here in Southern California, mostly because of the driving. But, lines in the center. This is a very important area in face reading. We won't go into all of the reasons for it, but the two things you want to look at in terms of emotion is, do they have a single line, no line, or double lines? Single line is what we call a suspended needle. If it's really deep, we call that a suspended sword. If you're TJ size, we call it the suspended bazooka. Okay, and what this usually indicates is it's usually anger directed at the primary father figure, and that if the mom was very masculine and very strong, it may be a mother, but classical Chinese, the father was the masculine side. So, but usually what that indicates is that at some point early in life, this person expressed their anger. They expressed their strength, and they were punished for it. There was pushback. You know, they were thrown in prison. They were given a timeout. They were kicked out of the house. A lot of times when young boys are maturing and going through that adolescence and teenage period, they become very rebellious because they want to be the alpha in the house, and so they express themselves, and dad gives them the life lesson. And sometimes, but what happens is, as a result of that experience, regardless of how it turned out, the negative consequences of that expression were so severe that they made a decision never to go that far again. And so they cut back and hold back their power. They limit themselves, and that's what that marking represents. And so at some point in life, that holding back of that power will limit them in something. It'll limit them from moving forward. But it starts as trying to express their feelings and getting, and the negative ramifications are so strong, they made a decision never to do that again. Okay? Now what's that?
How would you change that?
Point to where you feel it. Regress to cause. Nothing changes. You fix it. Right? Now Chinese face readers would sit there and talk about it. and allow you to talk about your anger, how you felt, what you've learned from it. And in that process, there would be some cathartic release as well, and you would begin the process of resolution. It's just slower. It does work. It works really well, but it's just slower than the methodologies that we use, and both are fine, right? Whatever is appropriate to the context in which you're doing these things, right? Pointing to where you feel it and taking a magic frame and doing shit might be a little bit theatrical in some cases, right? You might not want to do that in the middle of a coffee shop line, right, or something. But dialogue works in this case because it's a vibrational interaction, right? But yeah, every technology that you've learned in terms of spinning, magic framing, gray room, these are all things that you can bring to bear on every facial marking. If you understand the concept of the somatic search engine, there's a wrinkle on your face, there's a reason that wrinkle is there, and there's a feeling connected to the reason that wrinkle is there. Point to where you feel it. It's all in the question. It's all in the question. You get it? Steve?
And the nostril size difference.
Nostril size difference. Nostril size and the size of the nasal is an indication of how rapidly energy or money is expended.
Huh.
So if you have somebody who has a bigger nostril on the public side, they tend to be more frivolous in their money out in their professional life.
Shit.
Versus when they're in the private. If it's inverted, they're more spendy in private. They may have a room full of shoes that they never wear. They just buy to look at.
What was the second line? You said
Second line is actually two lines. When you see these two lines that emerge between them, you're looking at somebody who's got a lot of irritation, annoyance, or impatience. Irritation, annoyance, or impatience. Now, the line for that is specifically between the eyebrows. If the line starts to descend inside the eyebrow, down towards the inner canthus, now you've got somebody who's engaging in a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety.
That's one line?
Two lines.
Oh, 2 lines?
One line is
The one you said, yeah.
suspended sword. The other line is impatience, annoyance, irritation. Okay? So spend a lot of time going, right? We all do, especially when you live in Southern California without sunglasses and spend any time in traffic. That's the traffic face, right? But if the line extends down, now this is moving from the liver area to the spleen and pancreas area, which is almost a sign of excessive worry, anxiety, or overthinking. So when you see that, these people also need some therapy stuff to stop the overthinking part. TJ?
To add to the nostril difference, you can also ask them what kind of work they do, being if their public side is larger. The last class we had a lady who her public side nostril was almost 30% bigger. She was in accounts payable. So she processed a ton of money at work, but was very frugal at home.
How interesting.
The correlations are there.
And when I pointed that out, she was like, oh my God, she's looking at her face and I went,
Yeah. The way the Chinese look at it is the bridge of the nose in this area is the top of the energy funnel, where energy comes into the body. The nose and the flaring of the nostrils is the exit of the funnel. So the bigger the exit, the more comes out, the faster. So what we look at energetically, and money is just energy. So when we look at the energy flow in the body, if Natalia has got a beautiful I want her nose. I'd say I want the bridge of her nose. That's a money nose. Right? She can bring in lots of money, and the proportions of the base of her nose to the bridge of her nose is not really a lot compared to some of you. So she can actually hold on to a lot of that money, or she can take in so much she doesn't spend it fast enough. So she's going to have an easier time managing and accumulating money. Plus, if you look at her ears, they're like almost the size of her whole head, which is a sign of somebody who's going to have a comfortable retirement. They're going to live a long time, and they're going to be taken care of some way as they get older. So Yeah, don't thank me. Thank whoever gave that shit to you. Trust me, I didn't do it. But some people have a set of nostrils that are just huge. And it doesn't mean you won't be wealthy. It means you have to pay more attention to how you spend your money, right? Because big nose, money goes out faster than it comes in. It's very easy to turn upside down, isn't it? Charlton.
I'm curious to know.
Microphone.
Now, when you distinguish these features and these little line marks, I mean, how are you able to tell when somebody actually had some plastic surgery? Are those lines still be more prominent as well?
Depending on what they've changed, it will actually change their personality and health. Anytime you modify the bony structure, you're modifying your energy. You're modifying the fundamental building block of who you are. Not just in terms of your physicality, but in terms of your personality, attitudes, temperament. It's Jing, as we call it in Chinese medicine. And so, what I've seen is like Botox will screw you up, both physiologically as well as emotionally. Removing bone will dramatically reduce characteristics. Like if you have a very strong jaw or very prominent brow bone, you tend to be very good at athletics. You tend to be very physical, right? And if you remove bone from the jaw, or you have done soon, if you have a Frankenbrow, you know what I'm talking about, the big roof. These people tend to be extraordinarily gifted athletes, tremendous physical endurance. They love competition. They love to mix it up, right? And if you remove that bone, a lot of times you remove that quality and the talent that comes with it. And Lillian tells stories of kids going through high school with this massive, almost Cro-Magnon jaw, but was tremendously gifted at football. And then as a high school graduation gift, her mom got the kid plastic surgery. He lost his ability to play football, and he lost his scholarships. Right? I haven't seen any real, or haven't heard any stories about adding stuff, like adding collagen or filler or something like that. So I don't know how that affects us. But I know that removing substance is going to affect that attribute. Okay. I'm a big proponent of stem cell work, and I think that that's actually Lillian doesn't agree with me on this, but I think it's actually a good thing if you're using either your own stem cell or mesenchymal stem cells, which are umbilical stem cells. I think that's a way to get more Jing, which the Chinese say you can't do. Even though placenta and umbilical cord substances has been used in Chinese herbology for centuries for essence deficiencies, which are basically Jing. So I think there's a definite correlation there between supplementing your Jing and stem cell work. But that's just my theory, and I can neither confirm nor deny it. But yeah.
Just when you look at these
Microphone.
How much does race has to do with it? Because proportionally, are you looking at proportionally to the face?
The face is all measurements are based on the face itself.
Jews have big noses, big ears,
Yeah.
right? So, but we can generalize that.
Of course you can.
That all Jews have big noses. I mean, they're all.
You don't generalize that all Jews have big noses. You generalize. You don't generalize from people. I look at your face. The measuring stick of the face is the eye. Most people don't realize this, but the average head is 5 eyes wide. From side to side, it's 5 eyes. That's an average face. The space between the eyes is 1 eye. If it's closer than 1 eye, you've got close set eyes. If it's farther apart than 1 eye, you've got wide set eyes. They have characteristics. It has nothing to do with your eyes versus your eyes. It's all based on what the Chinese call body measurements, or body inches, or the Chinese call them chun, which is basically the width of a thumb knuckle, or in your case, we're measuring the face based on its own ratios, its own proportions. And so it doesn't really matter what the race is. We're not going to look at a white person versus a Jewish person versus a Muslim person versus a Serbian person versus an African American person. We're going to look at that face and what's proportional or disproportional. And so it all works. It's not about race per se. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Ducked another one. Okay. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take another 30 minutes, and now you've got the other half of the equation. Read more faces.